You know, there was a certain magic to hub worlds in early 3D gaming. The technology was pretty basic, so developers had to get creative to get the most bang for their buck. A good hub world was pretty crucial, considering the fact the player is going to be seeing it again and again. They're sort of like airport terminals, whisking you away to far-off and exciting locales, though with significantly fewer screaming children and diseases. Today we're going to be looking at one of the very best hub worlds of all time, Gruntilda's Lair from Banjo Kazooie. Now, Banjo Kazooie was an esteemed game, a masterclass both graphically and mechanically. It only makes sense that it had a hub world to match. But just what about this subterranean castle made it so effective? Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look into the design and history of this iconic locale, and the many mysteries that lay within it. Now, Gruntilda's Lair was almost playful in its design, much like the rest of Banjo Kazooie as a whole. Being a 3D collectathon, the hub world put great emphasis on player exploration. It went through great lengths to tease the players, and to get them excited about the levels to come. Unlike a hub world like Princess Peach's Castle, where you would immediately catapult yourself into the first level painting you got your mitts on, Banjo Kazooie adds a few more steps to this process. First, you need to find the level's painting and the corresponding door. Shove enough jiggies into that painting and the door will magically spring to life and let you go to the level. Thing is though, more often than not, you'll find one before the other, and will have to go through quite a few hoops before you can actually access the level itself. There's nothing humans want more than that which they cannot have, and seeing something just out of reach makes it all the more rewarding when you finally get to enter that mysterious new world. The world portals aren't just sitting around within the cavern-like structure either, they're leaking. The textures and art style actually bleed out from the portals, as though a slice of the level itself has crept into the layer. You already know what the level is going to be about just by the visuals alone. It also made quite clear which levels certain parts of the layer are tied to. This makes navigating the stronghold significantly more doable and entertaining. It's as if you're strolling through a giant theme park. This is also reinforced by the Lair soundtrack, which will actually change instrumentation and style to that of the leaky level. This gives you a bit of a taste of the world to come, and naturally makes you a bit more curious to see what it's all about. The game makes you want to see what it has in store, and will generally drop a hint as to how to get it. While the last world of the game, Click Clock Wood, is near the tippy top of the tower, the painting is actually located right next to the second world. Figuring out the secret of this mysterious painting is one of the most satisfying parts of the game. This loop of finding paintings and level entrances is simple but rewarding, and is cleverly built on top of the game's core mechanic of exploration. Now, while the level design was mechanically very competent, there's a bit more to Gruntilda's Lair than meets the eye. You see, there is an extremely diverse lineup of level themes that all somehow end up making sense. But the question is, where did these world ideas come from? How did the developers come up with the idea of a lair? To answer that question, we have to turn back the clock to when it wasn't the lair of a witch, but that of a giant. Early on in this game's development, when the game was being made for the Super Nintendo, it was referred to as Project Dream, with the primary antagonist being a mysterious giant. Finding out just what this behemoth would have looked like is one of the greatest mysteries of Banjo Kazooie. The rumor has it his influence can still be seen throughout the lair itself. After several design iterations, Project Dream moved to the N64, and the giant and fantasy aspects were swapped out with pirates. After even more failed attempts, the game was finally twisted into the fairy tale Banjo Kazooie we know and love. The end result of this was a game influenced by a wide diversity of ideas, with several of the pirate assets confirmed being used within the final game. The expertly crafted lair pulls all these concepts together in a package that is both interesting and, well, logical, in the sense of, magic. All this rich history and experimentation gave Gruntilda's Lair an air of mystery that other games in the genre rarely tapped into. The mysterious nature of the game worlds, while never directly acknowledged, definitely has an impact on the player's perspective. It's never quite clear where the worlds are in relation to the lair itself. When entering a level, Banjo and Kazooie are clearly seen walking through a doorway, but appear to magically warp to the location. Which begs a question: where the hell are these places? Many of the locations clearly belong to Gruntilda based on her dialogue, yet Exactly where they are in the Banjo Kazooie world is awfully ambiguous. They seem real, but it's hard to be certain where the lair ends and the new world begins. In, say, Princess Peach's castle, it's clearly conveyed that the paintings led to magical worlds created by Bowser. Hyrule Field was obviously just one big open world that you walk through, but in Banjo Kazooie you can never be too certain, letting player imagination fill in some of the gaps in an otherwise very coherent world for the low graphical fidelity. There was also a certain level of interconnectedness between the layer and the game worlds. Switches within the worlds would reveal a Jiggy within the layer itself. While at first finding the switch and getting the Jiggy is a pretty trivial task, it becomes increasingly difficult as the game progresses. The layer Jiggies are tied to puzzles, usually requiring a transformation or a power-up to access, of which you might not actually have yet. In a sense, this means the layer evolves with you, changing as you make progress throughout the levels, while at the same time having a direct connection with these seemingly distant lands. And you know, there was also another layer of this interconnected world. A strange experiment that led to countless rumors over the years, and that feature was the infamous stop and swap. The basic idea was you could collect secret eggs in the levels, and by hot swapping your cartridge you could unlock items in Banjo Tooie or other rare games. While this feature was ultimately canned, there were bizarre artifacts hidden away within the game's code, such as an inaccessible ice key that could be seen in the game's ice world, Freeze Easy Peak. But it doesn't stop there. By punching in stupidly long codes into the game's sand castle, you could unlock special egg holding rooms in each world. While this feature doesn't tie directly to Gruntilda's lair, it builds onto the intrigue surrounding the game, and the conspiracies that formed around the lair made it all that more engaging for those in the know. The more you progress through the lair, the higher up you go, getting progressively closer to your foe. The constant climb upwards serves as a physical reminder that you're getting close to your target. While earlier portions of the lair are straightforward and obvious, things get increasingly more convoluted as you proceed through the game. Certain level paintings are surprisingly well hidden, often requiring power-ups or transformations to access. The challenge scales appropriately with the difficulty of the levels, cleverly easing you, the player, into tackling some of the lair's stranger puzzles. Taking it to the next level, there are additional, optional secrets that take the extra mile to discover. Cheeto, the cheat-dealing spellbook, will grant you the codes to some powerful upgrades. If the player decides to take some extra initiative and seek him out, they're appropriately rewarded. His existence is teased at several points as you scale the tower. Speaking of scaling, the difficulty of the lair also scales appropriately as you make progress. Enemies grow increasingly dangerous and powerful, and environmental hazards become far more plentiful. It's not just the art style that seeps out of the level portals, the hazardous enemies will come barreling out as well. To cap this all off is a penultimate showdown near the lair's top floor, a game show to the death, hosted by Gruntilda herself. She'll be quizzing you on your journey and your knowledge of the lair. Now here's the catch. Gruntilda's nicer sister, Bruntilda, is hidden throughout the lair, and will give you the answer to some very difficult questions Gruntilda will surely ask. Player who is thorough and learns the lair in and out will be appropriately rewarded with, well, not death. Of course, they will only know to do this if they take the Good Witch's warning seriously. Speaking of witches, so far I failed to mention what is effectively the 300-pound hag in the room, and that's the Wicked Witch herself, Gruntilda. While I could easily ramble for hours about this iconic antagonist, it's worth noting her influence just oozes throughout the entire lair itself. Every time you enter the lair, you can hear Grunty's cackle, and are periodically taunted by her awful rhymes. She acts as an instigator, constantly reminding you that you're in her house, and reminding you just what's at stake here. Despite her powerful magic, Grunty is ultimately no match for the Baron Bird, and is brought to an end when smushed under a giant rock. Though, while the old hag is dead and gone, this was not the end. Not by a long shot. The wonderfully designed lair continued to live on, even to this day. In Banjo Tooie, it was possible to revisit the now derelict lair, though most of it was now rendered inaccessible. It's still home to the magic book Cheeto, however, and that iconic theme song would still play despite the former hub world's ruined state. Many players have tried to gain access to more of the lair through hacks and persistence, though what you see is what you get, unfortunately. The Lair would also appear once again in the less than popular Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, serving as an arena for the game's final challenge. Finally, the Lair would appear yet again, quite recently, in Smash Bros. As a stage, the witch herself making an appearance. Quite the legacy, I must say, and rightfully so. Mechanically competent and aesthetically genius for its time, Gruntilda's Lair represented the best overworld the 3D platformer genre had to offer, and arguably has yet to meet its match. Games would begin to steadily veer away from the concept of a hub world, leaning more towards level select systems or a single interconnected world. Despite these changing trends, Gruntilda's Lair would continue to be celebrated, and may very well come back someday. And that's all for this time. Thanks everybody for watching. If you like this type of content and think you might want more, make sure to subscribe, because I do this pretty much every week. And also, if you want to talk about some of the stuff in the video or Banjo Kazooie in general, just shoot me a comment down below. Until next time, see ya!